When we confess our sin, we're not informing God of our sin. God does not need to be informed. He is all-knowing. He is omniscient. We're not bringing new information before the Lord that he previously was not aware of. To confess our sin is not merely to inform God of our sinfulness. Confession is not informing God, it's agreeing with God. It's not informing God of our sin, it is agreeing with God that we are in fact sinners, and not only agreeing with God about our sin, that we are sinners, but in regard specifically to the severity of our sin. That when we confess sin, we are saying, let God be true, though every man a liar. There's a sense in which David even says in his great prayer of confession in Psalm 51, he says, so God may be proved blameless in his judgments. That's part of his prayer of confession. What David is saying is that as he confesses his sin before the Lord, one of the things that he's doing, one of his aims, his goal in confession of sin is, as it were, in a subjective sense, to exonerate God. Now, God needs, in the objective sense, no exoneration. David recognizes that God is just, even if every person on the planet lied about him. God will remain, in the objective, eternal, and truest sense, just in all his judgments. He is neither harsh, nor cruel, nor petty, nor capricious. He is just. And David knows that God remains just whether he acknowledges that God's judgments are fair or not. But in the subjective sense, David, a man after God's own heart, who loves God above all other things, David wants to exonerate God, as it were. You always have to add that phrase, as it were. Right? Anytime you talk about the Godhead and you're getting a little cute, just say, as it were, as it were, as it were, as it were. And you usually can come through unscathed without being deemed a heretic. All right, so just as it were, that's a pro tip right there. Jesus, or David rather, is exonerating God by saying he is blameless in his judgments. That's one of the things that we're doing when we acknowledge our sinfulness, not just that we are sinners, but a step further, acknowledging the degree of our sin, the severity of our sin, is we are saying, in a sense, that God is just, that God is not petty, God is not cruel, he is not capricious, God is just, and that all he does is fair, all he does is right, all he does is good.